Today we'll be working on 7-2 circles. In this lesson, we're going to be identifying the second form of the circles, which is the standard form. And we're going to be discussing how we can find the center and the radius from that form. And we're going to also discuss how we can translate this circle from one place to the other. So let's start on number 1. How do we identify an equation is a circle? Now to do that, if for example, if I give you something like this, 2x squared plus 2y squared minus 3x plus 2y minus 1 is equal to 0. Now by looking at this equation, you'll see that there is an x squared and a y squared, and they're being added, so this is a closed shape. But since x squared and y squared have the same coefficient, which is 2, then this is a circle. If they have different coefficients, then that would be an ellipse. So that is how we can identify a circle from the general form. So that is called the general form. Now let's move on to number 2. Each of the following equation belongs to the graph below. Okay. What's the radius of this circle? This is part A, and the equation is x squared plus y squared equals 25. Now, the radius, so what you need to do is start from the center and count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is the radius. What's the correlation between the radius and the equation? Look at the radius and look at the equation. How can we get 25 from 5? So basically, as you can see, the answer of this equation is 25, which is 5 squared. So as you can see, so what do we have to do to the radius before we put it in the equation? We have to square the radius, and then we put it in the equation. Now what is the center? The center is 0, 0. Now domain goes from left to right, so from -5 to 5. And since the circle is passing through those 2 points, we have a bracket. A range is from the bottom to the top, so also -5 and 5, and it does make sense since the center is 0 and we're moving 5, so of course we're going to have from -5 to 5. Okay, so that is for the first part, and the equation was x squared plus y squared equals 25. Please pause the video and try the other one. I hope you did try on your own. Now let's move on to number 3. What's the radius of the circle? Again, it's the same concept. You start from the circle and you count depending on, so let me make this bigger so to be easier for us to count. So I'm going to start from the -3, and then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see that the radius is a 4. What's the correlation between the radius and the equation? Same thing, 4 squared is equal to 16. So as you can see, you need to square the radius before you put it as the answer of your equation. So the same process as equation number 2c, yes, we did square the radius before we put it in the equation. Now they're asking us from the origin, which is 0, 0, did your function move left or right? As you can see, it moved 1, 2 steps to the right, so it moved to the right. Which variable is associated with moving function left or right? As you can see, I'm moving on the x-axis, so the x is associated. And from the origin, did the function move up or down? As you can see, you move down to get to your center. So you move down. And which variable? As you can see, I'm moving on the y-axis since I'm going up and down, so this has to do with the y. So what is the center? How many steps did you go to the right? 2 steps. How many steps did you go down? 3 steps. So 2, -3 is going to be your center, or you can just simply look at the point, it's 2 and -3, or you can think of translation. Do you see a correlation between the center and the equation? So let's see. I'm going to write the equation, or I'm going to write the center over here, and I'm going to look at, it's not very clear. Okay, I'm going to write the center over here, and I'm going to compare it to the equation to see. So 2, it's -2 inside, and -3, it's +3 inside. So as you can see, if they give you an equation like this, even though you have no let's say, graph, you're able to decide what the center is. It's always going to be the opposite of those two numbers, so 2 and -3. This is how you can get the circle, the center of the circle. Now, how can you get the radius? The radius is going to be always the square root of the number, which is square root of 16, and it's 4. Now, do you see a correlation between the center? Yes, and we just explained it. Now, the domain, it's going to be also brackets as well as the range. The domain is going to be from -2 to 6, from -2 to 6, and the range is going to be from the bottom, which is -7 to 1. Now, were you able to find this without looking at the graph? Yeah, definitely, because if it's 2 and the radius is 4, is moving 4 steps to the left. So as you can see, if it's 2 and the radius is 4, so you're going to get to -2. And if you're going to the right, you're going to moving 2 plus 4, which is a 6. This is one way to look at it. And the y, from the y, which is -3, the radius is 4, so 4. So -4 and 4, that would give you -7. And then -3 and 4, that would give you 1. Okay? So this is one way to look at it. Now let's move on to the... Now, they would give you a standard form like that. So again, this is called the standard form. And they will ask you to find the center and radius without having the graph. So the center is going to be the opposite. So it's going to be -4 and 5. Whereas the radius is going to be the square root of 36. So r, this is the center. Whereas the radius is going to be... And the radius is going to be the square root of 36, which is 6. I don't think I was recording when I was doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go over what is written over here. Okay, so by looking at this equation, you can see that there's no x. So that's a 0 for the center. And you take the opposite of -2, which is a 2. So that's the center, 0, 2. Then the radius is going to be the square root of 9, which is a 3. So to draw the circle, you move up 3, down 3, to the left 3, and to the right 3, and you get your circle. Now to find the domain, it's going to be from left to right, and since you're passing through those points, that's why we have brackets. Again, the range is going to be from bottom to top. Again, there you go, those are the brackets. Now by looking at this graph, you can see that the center is -1, -3. And if you count, you can see that you're going up 4 and down 4 and so on, so the radius is 4. Then the equation would be x, opposite of -1, so +1, and then y, opposite of -3, so 3, equal to the square of the radius, which is 16. So that is called a standard form. And from the standard form, you can get the radius and the center. Now let's move on to number 8. As you can see, x plus 1 squared plus y minus 5 squared is equal to 16 is graphed on the right. Let's see that. So -1, 5, -1, and 5, and that's the center. Let's mark that. That's the center. And the radius is 1, 2, 3, 4. So yes, what's the center? It's -1, -5, or -1, 5. With a colored pencil, graph the inverse of the original circle. Answer the following questions about the new circle with the colored pencil. Now, remember, to draw the inverse, it means you have to switch the x and the y. So if the center of this one is -1, 5, what do you think the center of the inverse is going to be? 1, -5. So let's do that. So 1, -5 is going to be the inverse. So what I just did is just switched the x and the y. Now, again, the radius is going to be the same because the inverse is just inverse. It doesn't change the shape. So since the radius is 4, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine them. And that's the inverse of my circle. So what I did is I just switched the x and the y. What's the center of the new circle? 5, -1. Write the equation of the inverse of this circle. So the equation of the inverse would be x minus 5 square plus y plus 1 square is equal to 16. The radius does not change. What do you notice about the centers of the original and the inverse circle? They are switched. So what you just did is the negative 5, you moved it over here, and the 1, you moved it over there. That's it. Now I hope this was helpful. Please go ahead and take notes. I hope you found it to be easy. We'll talk more in class.